Alright, Sarah's going to talk for a few minutes. Okay, tall girl perks. I'm going to hold my board and walk around and talk to you guys. So my name is Sarah Amadon, and I am a dietetics and nutrition graduate, second year student. I'm 37, and so I decided that after some health issues of my own, I was going to go back to school to practice nutrition, and particularly nutrigenomics. I don't know how familiar you are with like genetic predisposition to health and chronic disease and that sort of thing. So I have two boys. I live here in Indianapolis, married. My boys are 7 and 5. This is me and Wesley, who's my 5-year-old. Both of my boys had tongue ties, and my first had a lip tie that was so bad he couldn't have like a deep lash. Slow to gain weight. We sat and would feed for hours at a time, even at like 4 months, until a friend said, "Do you normally nurse that long?" It's like, yeah, this is our normal. So had a tongue tie revision, knew nothing about body work at the time. So it's been a journey, but now I get to incorporate that into my practice. So I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about like the microbiome of breastfeeding. And some of this is pretty new information. So does mom's diet matter?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you guys would probably agree that. But why does it matter? So you may have heard that, well, baby's gut is often a reflection of mom's gut.
Yes.
So why is that? But what we're seeing in some of the new information and studies is that there's a translocation of mom's gut bacteria and that composition that goes to the mammary gland. So, but what's even more interesting that I learned doing some of this research is that 10% of baby's microbiome is also from the areola. And so how much of what we're exposed to is from our environment? And we know that like kids should be playing in the dirt, and kids should have pets in the house. Yeah. All of that impacts the microbiome. So, but with breastfeeding in particular, we're seeing a recent study that said 90% of infants are missing a particular strain of Bifidobacterium called Infantis. And so what does that mean? That particular strain can break down any of the human oligosaccharides. And so maybe it's possible that infants that are not tolerating mom's breast milk are missing that strain.
Can you say what that was again?
The strain, it's the Bifido, or just B Infantis, and it's spelled Infantis. And I feel like that should give us a clue.
Was that study
need it.
Was that study though in relation to in vivo probiotic? Was it not?
Yeah.
I thought it was. Is it sponsored by that? That's what I was like. Is that real?
Strain, it was like
Yeah.
001.
Yeah.
Like
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
I mean,
so
do we think
that
that's?
was from January of this year. So I'm not even going to say that that's the thing. I'm just saying, wow, why are babies missing this strain?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
the 10% of babies that do have it, you said 90% don't. The 10% that do, where are they getting it from? Like, why do they have it, but the 90% don't? I think I read something about this, and it has to do with the combination of like, if they were born by C-section or if they've ever had formula supplementation. Are 90% of babies born either by C-section or formula? 90% of babies.
there's a lot of variables there. First, obviously, you guys have heard about vaginal seeding, right? So we're seeing that is almost as effective to do vaginal seeding as a vaginal birth, which is great. So within 2 minutes, a gauze that has been incubating in mom's vagina, within 2 minutes, if we're doing vaginal seeding, we're giving baby that gift of the microbiome from mom. However, in the nutrigenomics component that I'm into, there's a gene called FUT2, and that one is found that these moms are low in the Bifidobacterium in general. And so if that's true, then baby's also not getting that strain. So, and I'm actually one of those people. So, because I look at the genetic components, it's like, okay, well maybe that's why my babies both had reflux, even though we had all of these interventions done. And that can also impact your gut's ability to synthesize things like B12 So if we're seeing like little B12 in mom or baby, maybe there's a genetic component there where like the FUT2 gene is impacting the guy. So, yeah.
I'm sorry that you're going there. So we have so many moms who are GBS positive, so they're gonna be on antibiotics, they're being induced 3 days in a row. There's always an argument of when to start our antibiotic therapy, wait till they're, blah, blah. Has anybody deep dive going back to just the percentage, because we don't, that's not 90% that have GBS,
Yeah.
30%. I was just wondering, or the amount of times they've had trick or chlamydia, and they've had those treatments all throughout their pregnancy multiple times, keeps coming back, things like that. Has anybody looked at those
Not-
antibiotics
Not
killing?
specifically, but I was gonna mention the Lactobacillus strain of bacterium. And I can send these to you guys, so don't feel like, you know, maybe Lisa can forward all the references and everything to you. But the Lactobacillus, which largely makes up the vaginal microbiome, so it's a very acidic bacteria. And what that does is protect us from the bad guys. So if we're missing that or have had antibiotics, or maybe there's a candida overgrowth going on, there's gonna be an imbalance there. And that can also reflect in baby's gut. Maybe there's like thrush going on or something like that. It's like, okay, well, Lactobacillus, we know that's acidic and that prevents like an overgrowth of other bacteria coming in to take over. So I think maybe to answer your question is like if there's a GBS thing going on or just antibiotics in general, we wanna look at the Lactobacillus and the Bifidobacterium in particular to kind of help assist in repopulating that.
So giving them probiotics.
That can be great, and then think of like fermented foods, that's
Okay.
all acidic.
Yeah.
So like fermented is the Lactobacillus, it grows in that environment and it's very protective
Okay.
as well. So think of like fermented foods as something that's helpful as well.
I have a question. The 90% of infants that are missing the Bifido Infantis, what geographical location did those kiddos come from? Like, is this a global problem? Is this a US problem?
It's definitely more in the Western culture than it is other places. But yeah, I'm not super experty on that particular study. It was just something interesting that we're like, okay, we need to focus and, you know, move in that direction to better understand, well, what does that population mean? And some of these colors here too is actually a study that was done in 5 different states, but also what's the makeup of the bacteria in infant guts. And if you guys can see this blue bar, this is the Bifidobacterium of breastfed babies, and this is the Bifidobacterium of bottle fed. So if you guys can see this blue bar, it's substantially higher. And the Bifidobacterium is gonna be more anti-inflammatory. So infants that have enough Bifidobacterium have less eczema, have less allergies, have less asthma. So think of that like,
Well, that's interesting. When you say bottle fed, are you mean your
sorry,
baby fed?
formula fed, excuse me, yes, thank you. So yeah, so the Bifido is gonna be more of your anti-inflammatory, whereas the
Yes.
Lactobacillus is gonna be more of your like acidic, protective against infection, and it all like works together synergistically. But the Bifido in particular is what breaks down the human milk oligosaccharides, and that is essentially prebiotic fiber for baby. So it can't be digested without that Bifidobacterium. So yeah, so those were some of the highlights and just supporting baby's gut. And you guys have a lactation cookie here with cookie bites that my friend Tara Rochford, who's a local dietitian here in Indianapolis, made. So if you, she has really great recipes. She should be on the Food Network. But that recipe is also online, so you can forward it to anybody if you're just looking for a good lactation support bite recipes.
Thank you.
So,
I want some of them. Yeah, they sound good.
yum, yum, yum. So yeah, so focusing on mom's gut, including supportive fiber foods, your fruits and veggies, and your great, fabulous whole grains, and hopefully you'll see that reflected in baby's gut too.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
There we go.
You guys have my info, and let me know if you have any questions. And
You're welcome to hang out.
yeah.
If you wanna leave that, I can get it back to you this week.
That's perfect. All right, so thank you.
Thank you.